Alright, in this video, let's finish up our song library by putting our song selection screen into play and integrating it with the song library. So, let's jump in here to our song selection screen, which is here under menus as screen select. Now, inside of our screen select class, we're going to need to do a few different things. First, we're going to have to write a draw method here inside of screen select that loops through all of the songs in our song library. Then we're going to need to modify the input code of the screen select screen in order to move through different songs inside of the song library.
And that'll be with the select previous and next methods we wrote previously.
Exactly. We'll be doing input handling inside of the screen and passing on calls to select previous and select next. So, let's jump in and get started. The very first thing that we're going to do is load up our style XML file and drop in the positioning setting for the song selection list. So up here in content, we can drop into style and load up style.xml. So we're going to look for screen select, which is under the song select setting. And we'll drop in a value of 20 by 20. So we'll offset the song selection list 20 pixels by 20 pixels off the top of the screen.
So it's still going to be in the upper left corner of the screen, just not right up against it.
Exactly. We'll just give ourselves a little bit of padding. Alright, now I can move back to the screen select class and move down here past our input handling, where we'll drop in an override to the draw method. So we'll do an override to draw, and we will, of course, leave in our call to base.draw to get the background drawn. And now we need to put together a loop that is going to draw the name of each of our songs. So we'll put together a for loop. And the list that we're going to be iterating over is going to be the songs list found in the song library. So we're actually going to be looping until we hit the end of song library .songs.count. So now, for each of our songs, we need to come up with a few different pieces of information. We need to know where on screen we're going to be drawing this song name and with what color are we going to use, because we want to keep the same menu look and feel that we have from the earlier screen. So we'll have text selection and text normal for our colors. And then we'll need to do the basic positioning offsets. So let's begin with a color. We'll make a color variable, which we will call color, and we'll right off the bat set that to be stylecolors.textNormal. So we'll assume that the color is going to be normal unless the song happens to be selected. Now, if the song is selected, what we mean is that the item we have just pulled out of the songs list happens to be the song that is currently selected. And we can do that check by seeing if I is equal to song library dot selection index. So if the item we're looking at happens to be the selected item, we need to change our color over to stylecolors.textSelected. Again, this is all very similar to the code that's within the menu class itself. But again, we're having to put this together by hand here in the screen select class, since we're actually kind of you could say integrating the screen system with the song library system. Alright, now that we've got a color picked out to draw the text, we need to figure out what additional offset there is so that we can play songs one after another. And the first thing we'll need is to know what the text height of each line is. So we'll put together a variable, int line height, and we'll set that to be equal to our font's measure string method. We'll use measure string to pull out the height of a standardized piece of text to figure out how tall each line should be. So to do this, we can look into style.fontsmall, and we'll call measure string, passing in the text numeral 0 followed by the letter lowercase q. Again, giving ourselves an example piece of text which will generally cover most common text that we would draw out. So we have a very tall character and a character with a that goes very low on the given line. Now we're only interested in the height, so we'll drop in the y component of the return vector2, and then we'll cast that vector2 to an int. So now I know how tall each line should be. Now I can figure out the offset line by line. So what we'll do is let's go here inside of our draw method, and let's see, we need to figure out the current position. So let's drop in a local variable here before we ever get into the for loop itself. Let's make a vector2 and call this position. And for position, we'll copy the current offset of the screen. So that is style positions dot song select. Now as we're drawing through here line by line, we need to keep advancing down by a line's height. So we can take our position dot y and increment that by our line height. Once we've got the position, we can turn around and we are ready to draw the text to the screen. So we'll take our sprite batch and we will run a draw string call. We're going to be drawing using the font small, so style dot font small. The text is going to be the text of the current song. Now by current song we mean not the one that's selected, but the one that we're looking at in the loop, which means we need to address song library dot songs sub I. Now for the position, we'll drop in our position vector2, and for color, we'll drop in the color variable. So that should take care of our call to draw. And at this point, even though we're not going to be able to select the songs, let's jump in and run the game and make sure that thus far we have the proper linkage between our drawing and our song management. So let's build and run the game, and jump into single player, and looking at the song selection screen, we now have different songs.
There you go.
Now if we hit the up and down buttons, not only does it not select anything, but the game immediately dumps out with a crash here, saying that we had no items to walk through. So we'll address this by changing our input code inside of the screen select class. Because here we're passing on a call to base dot input pressed, we'll actually pull that call out entirely. Since we're not managing an internal list of items, we're working with an external list of things inside of the screen library. Alright, so for our input, let's drop in a few additional else clauses. So right after our else if named inputs are named input select, we'll drop in an else if for if the named input is up or down. So we can look into input data.named input. If that is equal to named inputs dot up, then we will select the previous song. So we will address song library and tell it to run the select previous method. We'll do the same thing for down, so I'll copy the entire if statement dealing with the up button, paste that in, change the named input to down, and change the song library call to select next. So that should let us walk up and down in our songs. Now one last thing we need to do before we turn our attention to the game class is we do want to make sure that whenever the song selection screen is brought up, it resets the song selection to its original state. So to do that, we'll put in an override to our process show method here inside of the screen, and we will make sure that we call the reset selection method of our song library. So song library dot reset selection.
Which should reset the list every time the screen shows up.
Exactly. Since again the list is actually external to the screen itself, we'll just make sure that that call gets passed on. Alright, with that, there is one last thing to link up and we should be ready to test. Let's move over to our game screen, here in the screen game class. And inside of reset, we have our load song file method. Let's put together the necessary call so that instead of hard coding in a song name, we can simply use the song library. If we look at song library, we of course have the selection property, which is going to give us the full path to a specific song. So then we can turn around and use that to load into the current game screen, and that way our game will load using whatever song is currently selected. So with that, let's build and run the game, and we should be ready to test things out. So we'll jump into single player, and to begin with, let's grab that rock song.
And it looks like we can select just fine.
And also you notice hitting the up and down buttons is walking through our song selection. So if we grab the last song, we jump in here, we have our tempo of 120 and our familiar pattern. We can jump back and select the first song, 2x bass. We get our 180 tempo and our different note pattern. And finally we can test out 6/8 time, jump in, and now we can access that song.
Nice.
So very quickly we can jump through all of our songs and see them played here in the game. So with that, we now have a song library functioning, and we have that song library tied into the song selection screen, so we now have the ability to select songs here inside of our game. And with that, that's going to wrap up this video.